Welcome to Coffee Break with Rachel V. Hill, presented by Superbook Sports. Taking a daily look at the biggest stories in Denver sports and interacting live with you, the Coffee Break fam. So sit back, relax, grab a cup of joe, and enjoy your coffee break. Here's your host, Rachel V. Hill.
Happy Monday, everybody. Holy smokes. Did anybody miss the Broncos this weekend? I sure as heck did. I don't know about you guys. Good morning to everybody in the comments. I already love seeing it. How about them Rammies? How about them Rammies? We're going to get to that in just a little bit. We're also going to be talking about the Buffs. Friday the 13th hit Boise and CU very, very hard. Sean Payton also talked to the media this morning. Andrew Mason's going to join us. Plus, we have to talk about the Colorado Avalanche, you guys. Lots of fun stuff coming up on Coffee Break. How about them Rammies? Let's see. Rachel, such an exciting week. The rematch against the Kraken tomorrow and the home opener against Connor Bedard. I know this week is crazy for the Colorado Avalanche. I like the Broncos to select Drake May over Williams. We're also going to get into Caleb Williams' talk because obviously his 3 interceptions caused quite the stir up when it comes to the Heisman Trophy and lots of other stuff. It's Avalanche season 2-0 and counting, yes. But let's start with the Rammies. JB says, nice win for the Rams. Absolutely, you guys. I am so excited. This was such a great game. I had friends who were actually in attendance at the game, and they left early. I always think about my aunt. Every single time we would go to a Broncos game, she would always say, you never leave. You always stay until the fat lady sings. 100%, you never know what can happen. It was such a crazy game to just kind of like witness and be able to look back on. This Colorado State team is a lot better than I think a lot of people are giving them credit for. They do play down to the level of competition a little bit, same with the Buffs, but you're down 30-10. You have 4 minutes left in the game. I'm like, no wonder why my friends left, right? It was like a 99.9% like chance that Boise was going to walk away with it. And all of a sudden, CSU is marching down the field. Left and right. The game ends on a freaking Hail Mary pass, and then your PAT wins it for you, and they win 31-30. Are you kidding me? How often do we really see Hail Marys work? And man, was it a beautiful one. Obviously goes off 2 players for the Rams. Another one ends up catching it. I'm forgetting his name. It's blanking on me right now. But you guys, crazy, crazy game. So exciting. But yeah, Friday the 13th for Boise. Ouch. And then let's talk about Friday the 13th for CU. You guys, holy smokes, 29-0. You're like, all right, Buffs are going to do this. This was supposed to be a really easy game against Stanford. They're not a very good team. Perfect. They're getting 1 week closer to getting that bowl game eligibility for the Buffs. What the heck happened in that locker room? I don't know. But you saw a team who was, I think a lot of... Here's my thing with the Buffs now. I think they played the underdog card very, very well for so many weeks. It's like nobody was giving them the respect that they wanted. And all of a sudden it feels like it's flipped. Like they're supposed to be the team that everybody is supposed to go out there and be. And you got to give credit to Coach Prime because they obviously have created this whole, situation around the Buffs. You got Shadur doing the watch. Like everybody's talking about the CU Buffs. And then in the locker room, I don't know if they got cocky and they just thought it was over. Like they were getting ready. They were shining the watch. I don't know if Shadur started shining his watch or whatever it was. But they blow a 29-point lead. It goes into double OT. Shadur has the interception that essentially allows Stanford just the opportunity to kick a field goal to win the thing. And you're kind of looking at this team like, what just happened? How did this happen? And I'm really shocked because, I don't know if anybody else has seen it, but they have this camera zoom in on Coach Prime's face. It's like going viral on X or Twitter, whichever one you want to call it. And you just see it like zoom in slowly on his face. And you can just tell that he almost looks like dead inside. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is unfreaking believable. If you haven't seen it after the show, definitely go look for that clip. It's really funny. But it just almost seemed like Prime knew. And I got to give it to Prime because he definitely sticks it out. And yeah, Stanford showed heart and grit. Hopefully the Broncos are taking notes. Yeah, hopefully. But you got to just kind of, I don't know if you wipe that one away because we just got that after the speech for Coach Prime, essentially being like, I don't want to be barely beating Arizona State. I don't want to be barely losing to Stanford. You want to be in competition with the big dogs. You want to be in competition with Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson when they're really good. Like those are the team Coach Primes wants to be associated with. Not losing to Stanford, not a great football team, not barely beating Arizona State, not shining your watch when you barely beat him. I think it's fascinating. He owns it like any other coach. What is worse, losing a 29-point lead or giving up the 70 burger? The 70 burger 100%, because that's professional football right there. The SNL skit with Coach Prime was hilarious. I agree. And I feel like Coach Prime probably laughed. That's one good thing about Coach Prime that I've just learned from my very, very short stints is he is able to laugh at life. And I think he gets that, right? There's football and there's life. And he understands that they can be like in cohesion, but they're also very separate too. It's like a Venn diagram a little bit. But he had this really, really good quote. And I just gotta read it, and said, "It's hard for me because I love this. I love it. And without a shadow of doubt, I am truly 100% in love with this thing. And I just want people to match me, just match my passion, match my heart, match my love, match my consistency, just match my mannerisms, just match every darn thing I give to this game. I love this. Sadly, I love it so much, but the game doesn't even occupy the ability to love you back. That's a strange love, isn't it?" And I thought it was unique. I thought that's quite a quote coming out from a coach who just watched his team absolutely collapse. And he does give so much to the game. And I can understand where you want to ask and say, my team, my other coaches in this building, like, do the same that I'm doing, please. Think about what Coach Prime goes through every single game day with his health and his foot. And yet he's still out there giving 100%. It's tough. I feel for Coach Prime a little bit, but caps off to Stanford because they were definitely able to, I don't know, go out there and capitalize on a team that let their guard down. So major props out to them. I'm going to give it to him. Coach Prime, I have no doubt that you will be able to bounce back this team after their bye week. And hopefully this doesn't affect any bowl eligibility. Let's hope that they're able to compete with some of the good teams that they got coming up. They got a few ranked teams in there. Hopefully they're able to get back on the board and hopefully go to a bowl for first time in quite a while. Travis Hunter obviously came back. He had one of the calls that kind of changed the momentum of this game. He obviously also had a touchdown in there too. So Travis Hunter back out there after his lacerated liver. I still don't know how you get a lacerated liver. Like, that's just fascinating to me, but of course you do. Sean Payton spoke to the media this morning, and I believe we have our very own Andrew Mason behind the scenes now, because we have to listen to what Coach Sean Payton had to say. And of course, if you don't already, make sure you watch Orange and Blue today, every single weekday at 3:30. Cecil Lammy and Andrew Mason. We love being able to chat with them. But let's talk a little bit about what Coach Payton had to say, because he had the long weekend to think on their loss to the Kansas City Chiefs and this 1-5 football team. Andrew Mason, how are you this morning?
I'm doing all right, Rachel. How are you?
Good. I like this setup, Mase. You looking good, my friend.
Oh, thank you. I mean, it's like, although I got to figure out like the camera and iPad here, like I was a little bit rushed after covering the press conference, so it's like doesn't look quite right, and my hair could be better, but I mean,
See, I actually kind of like it. I like the little bit of poof you got going on up here. I'm here. We're here for some volume, Mase.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the volume. But yeah.
Mase, you're acting like you just watched this team lose to the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday. We had a full weekend, my friend. I hope you took advantage of a little bit of free time, but what'd you learn from Sean Payton?
Well, I mean, there are a few things. First of all, he was asked about Frank Clark. I thought it was interesting that he framed the Frank Clark cut as a, quote, win-win for both sides, unquote. So, look, we know Frank Clark was trying to get out of there, right? I mean, and he got his wish. Now he's going to go play wherever. But then the other side of that, you're saying it's a win for the Broncos as well. So it's very much he's, without saying the phrase addition by subtraction, he's implying the phrase addition by subtraction, right? So I think you kind of start there. And then
I was going to say, do you think Clark ends up back in Kansas City? That's where everybody's linking him to.
I think so. I think that makes the most sense.
I don't want to like make the pun or whatever it is, but it's literally like a Taylor Swift song. Like, you break up, you go to the rival, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I'm going to come back to you because I miss what you guys are doing back there.
He misses the chance at a ring. That's probably it. But also, I think he probably misses the environment and all that. Look, when a team is successful like the Kansas City Chiefs are, when they're winning, people, players want to go there. We saw this here when Peyton Manning was a Bronco, right? Players wanted to come here, and maybe they would take a little bit less to play in Denver than to go somewhere else, or they would wait out the free agent process. I remember back in the 2015 offseason, they bring in Evan Mathis to play guard. Mathis is a very highly decorated player. He'd been a Pro Bowler. He'd been All-Pro. And though he didn't come in until August, but one of the reasons why I think he felt he could take his time because he knew Denver was always a possibility, right? And so there it is. That's where the Chiefs are. Players who aren't there want to be there. They want to be around Patrick Mahomes. They want to have a shot at the ring. And the Broncos, well, when you're 1-5, if you're a veteran who's used to winning like Frank Clark is from both Seattle and Kansas City, it's a place that's a little bit of a slog. It's not something everybody can handle.
Yeah, and I know Coach Payton talked about the trade deadline because it is quickly approaching, and he says, I'm worried about the game that we have this upcoming weekend, but you still got to pick up the phone if anybody's calling, or is it the Broncos now saying, hey, I'm going to call you to see if you want any of these guys?
Yeah, I'm sure there's a little bit of both going on. I'm sure that behind the scenes that they're making it clear that they are open for business. But like you said, it's a George Payton thing. He said the way it works is that those calls, he referred to the calls coming in, but he said, hey, those calls come to George Payton, and George Payton comes to myself and Greg Penner with what he's got. And George Payton is obviously the subject of a lot of critiques and criticism, and I think certainly some of them are justified based on the Broncos' form over the last couple of years. But at the same time, he's got a pretty massive Rolodex, and he is a pretty good wheeler dealer in that regard, and this is the sort of thing that can help you make deals. And here we are talking about the Broncos potentially selling at the deadline again. This is 4 of the previous 5 years they sold a tentpole player at the deadline, right? The late Demaryius Thomas, 18, Emmanuel Sanders, 19. They skipped 20, and they probably would have made a deal if not for all the COVID protocols that year. 21, they trade Von Miller. 22, they trade Bradley Chubb. It's a tradition unlike any other, and yet here we are watching the Broncos continue to spin their wheels, even though they sell year after year after year.
I know. It's painful. So let's play a little bit of a game here, Andrew Mason. You get to be George Payton. I'm going to be another GM somewhere out here. And you tell me if you're taking this deal for any of these players. Justin Simmons, second round. Yeah, we'll just go a second round. Just one.
Who's offering the trade?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of who really needs a safety really bad. Let's just say, I want to say the Bills, but they just need a corner. Let's just say it's a lower second round. I'm trying to think of teams that will be down there.
Then I'd be like, okay, let's toss in a third. I'll give you back a fourth.
Okay.
A low second round for Justin Simmons. I mean, look, he just had an interception of Patrick Mahomes last Thursday.
Yep.
He's still a really good player. And the contract, it's not that unreasonable for a top line safety. And it's something that if you want to restructure, you can do that. So the contract isn't an issue at all. He's still playing at a really high level, probably still a top 5 safety in this league. And that's why I'm thinking, okay, if it's a low 2, I'm thinking, all right, we got to get something else here. I don't think a low 2 is enough.
I like that move. Okay, let's say, since everybody's linking them, you're the Carolina Panthers. You're saying, hey, I'm going to offer you a high 4th for Jerry Jeudy.
Okay. I'm gonna do the exchange of picks again. Let's see if we can't turn that high 4th into a 3rd, and we'll send you back a 4th.
Okay. So
4th or a 5th. We're gonna send you back an early to mid day 2 or day 3 pick. But I'd love to get that to a 3.
Okay. Any 3? Any pick in the 3rd round you're okay with?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, although what we're talking about a deal, if we're talking about a high 3rd, then probably you're sending a 4th back, to balance things. If you're talking about a low third, it's maybe a fifth, or maybe we're even just a low third. We're talking about, all right, just a 3 for Judy.
Okay. Same team. We're talking Jared Judy. I'm unsure. He, is causing a lot of drama, it seems like, over there on Twitter. We all know social media.
Yeah.
Let's talk Cortland Sutton for a quick second. How about we say low fourth, high fifth, and we pick up a majority of that salary?
Ooh, okay. So the team trading for him is picking up the majority of it, or the Broncos are picking it up?
The team trading for him. So if we're talking Panthers, we're linking that. They're picking up a majority.
So we're getting that cap relief for the Broncos. I'm taking that deal.
Okay, 100%, right? I'm like, if you take the money, you can have him over there. Okay, let's do the big baller one. Pat Surtain, 2 firsts. Are you doing it?
Okay, so you're probably talking about
one, Mase.
Well, here's the thing. You're talking about probably 2 low first, because or at least 1 low first, because a team that trades for Pat Surtain is certainly going to be a contender. The reason why I'm hanging on to Pat Surtain is twofold. Number one, he is an incredibly valuable piece. I'm not getting rid of that in this right now in this cycle. Okay. I want to see how the rest of the season goes, what you're looking at in terms of draft capital. The other thing is this. As your most valuable piece, if you're in a position where you're moving on from Russell Wilson and you have to move up in the draft, he's your most valuable piece to allow you to do so. Think of it as how part of the deal between Carolina and Chicago, and Carolina going from 9-1 to pick Bryce Young, it involved DJ Moore. So I think if we're talking about a trade of Pat Surtain, it's not right now. It is if you've decided you have to go quarterback and you have to move up, and there's no other way to move up in the draft than by involving Pat Surtain in a deal. And that may have some allure as well, even if you're picking, say, 5th and trying to get up to number 2 overall. Let's exist in that scenario where Chicago has the top 2 picks, right? Which at this moment they do. And you may look at that deal and say, okay, here's a way to make that trade up without really getting destroyed in terms of the draft capital that we send back. Like you could honestly, like, I think you could legitimately do Pat Surtain and number 5 overall to move up to number 2. Okay. I think that's actually a very reasonable deal in terms of the value you're getting from Surtain. And you may prefer to do that rather than saying Pat Surtain and 2 other first, or pardon me, the number 5 overall pick and maybe another 2 first-round picks to move up and get your quarterback. That's something I think you're going to have to think about. And that's part of the reason why I don't think we're talking about trading Surtain. That it's a kind of a last,
but it definitely scares you. Mase, we're obviously a part of a group chat here at Denver Sports, and I just got this text, or we both did. Pat McAfee goes on and says, allegedly, the Denver Broncos could be making a change at defensive coordinator, and Rex Ryan is potentially in the mix. Your first thoughts on this?
They're bringing in Rex Ryan during the season. Or are we talking about off season?
It sounds like they could be making a change soon. I don't know why you would be talking about this going into week 7 if it's something that's going to happen in the off season.
I mean, okay.
You don't love Rex Ryan, do you? You and Cecil are both on the
When was the last time he was a defensive coordinator in the NFL or head coach? I believe it was 8 years ago in Buffalo, and then he went into television. I mean, he's been away a long time. And I mean, he's a great quote. I also think, okay, he's been away for a while, so I'm skeptical on that. I'm also skeptical of anything right now that could give you a false positive going down the stretch. I mean, I don't think trying to marshal a turnaround for the moment is the best play here. I don't,
you're on full team tank it.
I am, honestly, I am, because I want to build up the draft capital. I'm not so much team tank as I am team rebuild.
Okay.
And rebuilding may mean that you have to have some pain in the short term while you throw young players out there in particular to get better. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, I guess what was that? That was broken by Pat McAfee show this morning. Seeing on the text. Yeah.
It's fascinating. I mean, we hear all the time, like nobody in that locker room is ever gonna 100% give up. You know what I mean? Like they're all professional athletes. They all want to go out there and win. As a fan base for Broncos country, you're like, no, we want to go out there and get Caleb Williams, which we can talk about here in just a second. But Sean Payton looking at, I can't have this be my first season in Denver. I can't have this be my return and possibly only win one football game this entire season. So do they make a trade at defensive coordinator? And I mean, Rex Ryan, even he was on First Take this morning, taking shots at the Denver Broncos saying, well, if they would have called me, the defense would have looked a lot better. It's fascinating to me how this is kind of all unfolding.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I'll say this. Yeah, the players are going to be competitive, right? But you can have a scenario where organizationally you're focused on the future and focused on younger players in the present. And those guys out there are still trying to do their best, but you know that the outlook is for the moment isn't going to be great. I mean, we see it in baseball all the time, right? I mean, when you look at the Rockies, I mean, they trade, they make a bunch of deals at the deadline. They trade Randall Grichuk, they trade CJ Crone, they trade a couple of guys from their bullpen. And so you look out there in August and September, and you see some exciting young players, some of whom who'd been there, over the course of the season, like Nolan Jones and Ezekiel Tovar. But you're also seeing that when you trade from that bullpen, there's not a lot left, and your starting pitching was already decimated. And you're looking around and you're seeing, loss after loss pile up to where you set a franchise record, right? But at the same time, those guys out there are trying, and they are going to have their moments from time to time. And I think that, to me, that's what the back half of the season, if I'm saying, all right, we are moving on and trying to focus on the future, that's what it looks like, right? I was asked about this actually when I was on 104.3 The Fan this morning. And I said, look, it's obvious. Okay, it's playing Marvin Mims Jr. more than 12 snaps. Okay,
please.
But it's also getting longer looks at Drew Sanders, and you're gonna live with some mistakes with Drew Sanders. It's longer look at Riley Moss once he gets up to speed in the defense. Even a guy like Elijah Garcia, who had a sack when he came in against the Jets, and then was inactive 4 days later against the Chiefs. Okay, no, I want to turn the page on as many of these younger guys as we can and spend the back half of the season finding out what you possess in them. I mean, at 1-5, and also at 1-5 with 200 points allowed, as the Broncos are right now, I mean, you're looking at a very, very bleak chance of getting back into it realistically. So I'm being a realist. Yeah,
I'm with you. You got to take emotions out of it. We're all fans of the game. We're all fans of a lot of players in that locker room too. Real quick, everybody is freaking out on Caleb Williams. He obviously had 3 interceptions in the first half against Notre Dame. Are you on the everybody take a chill pill, like it happens, worst football game of his career most likely, or are you on the maybe we learned a little bit more about Caleb Williams than we thought?
Let's see how he responds. That's the thing that I want to see. There are reasons for some concern based on that. That's probably the toughest defense he's going to see, sure. The one that Notre Dame put out there. And look, it can go both ways. I'm going to tell a really, really old story here, but Vinny Testaverde was the unquestioned top prospect going in the 1987 draft. He went out there against Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl, which was a national championship game that year, and threw 5 picks. And while Testaverde eventually became a good quarterback as a pro, it took some time. He literally set the interception record with 35 in his first full season as a starter. And so you can look back at that Fiesta Bowl and say that kind of augured some of the frustration early in his career to come. So let's see kind of how he handles it, what he does going forward. But one game shouldn't take you off the train for Caleb Williams. I look at Caleb Williams and Drake May, and to me, they are still head and shoulders above the class. There are other quarterbacks to talk about, like Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, Shedeur Sanders potentially, etc. But Penix has a long injury history, and I think that's why we're not talking about him being a potential top 5 pick. Bo Nix is just okay. Not he doesn't wow me in the way Drake May wows me, for example, right? So to me, it's 2 quarterbacks and then there's a gap. But yeah, one game should not change that. Now, if we see a pattern, if it's 2 more games like this for Caleb Williams, it's a different conversation. But right now, after 1 game, it's not.
Andrew Mason, always a pleasure. Get back to writing that article. What are you working on over there at denversports.com?
Well, we just had a piece on Frank Clark. A few more little nuggets from Sean Payton today. He talked about Greg Dulcich. He talked about Marvin Mims Jr. I asked him about Mims, trying to basically, say, I asked him, what does Mims need to do going forward? In part because I'm trying to ascertain, why is this dude only playing 12 snaps as he did against Kansas City? And he said, we got to find ways to get him out there. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, yeah, that's on you. You're the head coach. You're the offensive play caller. Okay. Ultimately finding those ways to get him out there. Okay. Yeah. You're taking some snaps away from somebody else perhaps, but that's, that is actually the thing that is in your control, getting 100%. Him out there on that field for some snaps. So it was an interesting response, no doubt.
We'll look forward to that piece over at denversports.com, Mase. Always an absolute pleasure. And you know what? Rachel. We need to see this play call sheet. It needs to have more Marvin Mims on it, 100%. I'm going to look forward to it. Hopefully they can get that rolling here shortly as well. All right, you guys, let's talk just a smidge about Caleb Williams too, because his height has all of a sudden become a little center of discussion. We're going to get to the Colorado Avalanche stuff too. I promise everybody. I know we got 3 minutes, so we're going to roll fast through all of this. Caleb Williams is listed as 6'1". We always know that they lie on that kind of stuff. Everybody has kind of started talking that we've seen a few tipped balls from Caleb Williams. Is his height going to play in? We're going to get into that later this week too. To be honest, draft talk's going to start ramping up a ton when it comes to the Colorado or to the Denver Broncos team. So buckle up on that one. I'm definitely fascinated about it. I need to apologize to Georgiev, the goaltender for the Colorado Avalanche, because I didn't give him enough credit. I didn't give him enough credit last season, and I got to give him credit now. And we also need to talk about Blackwood from the San Jose Sharks because, wow, he had a historical night. I think the Avs had 114 or 111 shots, and he only let in 1 until the shootout. And then obviously the Avs walk away with the win. Cale Makar coming in clutch. There was like 90 seconds left in the game. He comes in, is able to put one in the back of the net. Nichushkin able to be the assist on that. I'm happy to see him getting on the board. Nathan MacKinnon had 14 shots on goal. Holy smokes, Nathan MacKinnon, keep lighting it up. Eventually, one of those is going to go back in the net. We are seeing the depth of this team and the veteran players of this team really starting to make this team better. And I know it's early on, so it's like, okay, you don't want to get too ahead of yourself, but we're really seeing that the fight is in this squad, and I'm really, really happy about it too. My apology, though, to Georgiev. I just did not give him enough credit last year. I feel like all of the times where I was like really counting on him, like maybe, I don't know, 45% of the time, I felt like I got let down a little bit. And I got to give him credit because he has definitely stood on his head for the first 2 games of this season. I know it's only 2. I'm going to be really excited for tomorrow night against the Kraken. I think it's going to be really fun. They're obviously the heartbreak that was the Kraken last year in the playoffs. They're going to return. How Nichushkin goes back there, and obviously all the drama and all the feels, everything of that nature is going to be interesting to watch. And then I know everybody's excited about Thursday with Connor Bedard too. I will actually not be in attendance. I'm really sad I will not be there on Thursday night. I am headed out of town, which is a bit of a heartbreak, but I know it's going to be a good game, and I know Avs fans are going to have so much fun. Nathan MacKinnon, keep shooting the puck. Eventually one of those is going to go back in the name or go back in there. And also Mikko Rantanen, dude, keep doing what you're doing. Okay. I know you are underappreciated. Guess what? You are absolute big baller out there. Go out there, keep rolling with it. I'm really excited. He's going to have some huge points this year, you guys. Holy smokes. Mikko Rantanen, the Moose, has been absolutely on fire, obviously gating 4 points in game 1 and then having the goal in the shootout on Friday night, Saturday night. What day of the week is it? Anyways, Mikko Rantanen, love you, appreciate you, keep going. Cale Makar, same to you, and same to everybody in the comments for hanging out with us as always. Love it. Let me know your thoughts on Caleb Williams after his 3 interceptions in the first half against Notre Dame, and let me know if you think that the Avalanche will get a win tomorrow night in Seattle against the Kraken. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Plenty more to talk about. Thanks, guys. Get back to work, everybody. We'll see you then.